Last week I started a little mini-series on the subtle causes of trauma. Part of what my work has become is really helping people understand the subtle causes of trauma in their life. So I get people that come to me all the time and go, I had a pretty good upbringing and I don't think I got any severe trauma in my life, but why do I have most of the 60 characteristics of complex trauma showing up in my adult behavior? And so we start to look for some of the more subtle ways that a child can experience trauma. So let me take you to another subtle form of complex trauma. And I hope these are really helping you begin to get a sense of maybe some of the stuff in your own life. In some families, the family puts all of their hopes in one child. That this one child is going to save the family, this one child is going to take care of the family, this one child is going to be the best representation of this family. And so that can happen in some cultures where the families place all their hopes in the firstborn male, or in other families it can be in the child who's the most talented, has the greatest potential to get a really good job. And so that one is going to take over the family someday, be the leader in the family someday, make sure everybody gets taken care of. And so that is what begins to happen. And so the pressure then becomes is that that child must succeed. That child must accomplish this goal, become this person, gain these accomplishments, or else the whole family is going to fall apart. It's all on their shoulders. And so there's this ton of pressure put on this child that they have to do well in school, in a job, they have to be better than everybody because the family is depending on them. And if they don't succeed, the family is going to fall apart. So let me just break that down for you. So in some families, especially in poorer cultures, all of the hopes get put in a child that's going to do well financially, get a good job, and therefore are going to be able to take care of the family financially, take care of the parents in old age. So there's a ton of pressure put on that child to get the best education and the best job. Others, often in shame cultures, is we want the firstborn child or one of the children who's very talented to get a job that's high status so that everybody looks at that child and go, wow, they must have an impressive family if they've got this job that is so influential and is so significant. And so the status becomes a thing that has to be maintained so that everybody's not looking down on the family. It gains respect for the whole family in the culture. Many cultures just do it automatically to the eldest child or the first male child, that you are the one that's responsible to keep this family going. And that just is drilled into that child from early in life. Another situation that can happen for some is that their parents had dreams for their own lives, dreams of a great career, dreams within professional sports of attaining greatness, and it never happened. Their dream, something happened that killed their dream. And so what they've done is now transfer their dream onto their child. And so they now want their child to fulfill that career for them. They want their child to become that professional athlete so they can live their dreams out through their child. So I hope you can see that that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the child. Now let's look at it from the child's perspective. If the child protests and says, I don't want that career, that doesn't interest me, I don't want to do that, then the family responds by saying, that's your responsibility. You have to be a responsible person, and you have to be willing as a responsible person to set your desires aside and do what's best for everybody. So they make it sound very virtuous, very good. But what they're basically saying is, we don't really care about what's best for you. You have to take care of us. It's about our image. It's about our financial needs. It's not about what's best for you. Now, what can make it tricky for the child is as long as they conform and they're heading towards fulfilling that role that the family has for them, that's going to accomplish all the hopes the family has, that child will get tons of validation. The family will tell them how gifted they are, how wonderful they are. And that feels so good to the child. They feel so special. They feel so valuable. They feel so loved and respected and appreciated. It seems to be like this is a really healthy family validating their children and really helping their children succeed. The problem is nobody really cares about what that child wants. If the child starts to talk about what they want, they go, no, 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 no. You're being selfish. Let's get you back to what the path for you has been chosen, and you need to be responsible. You need to be loving and take care of your family. Stop being selfish. And it gets spun. And so the child is being gaslit by the family, which is basically being narcissistic, that unless you fulfill this role, you are being selfish. So you cannot be real. And so the child doesn't feel seen for who they really are, what they really want. They don't feel heard. Their needs and desires don't matter. Nobody gets them. Nobody cares about them. And they begin to feel used. Authenticity is not allowed. They begin to feel shame. And for many, it begins to create a deep hurt and a deep anger, and that I don't really matter, just who I am. And so that is such, again, a subtle form of complex trauma, but sadly it happens over and over again. Now, something that can also happen with this is that as the child gets older and they get to a point, let's say, where they just say, you know what, I'm not doing what you want. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to pursue my own path. All of a sudden, the family stops validating them. The family stops praising them. The family stops showing respect to them. The family turns against them. The family starts calling them down. The family starts persecuting them. The family starts trying to manipulate them. The family gets cruel to them. And what they begin to see in vivid detail is they were never truly loved for who they were in the first place. They were only loved conditionally if they did what the family wanted. But if they ever stepped outside of what the family wanted and did what they wanted and followed their own passions, the family turned against them. And so this, what they thought was unconditional love, they find is extremely conditional. And you're only loved if you conform to what the family wants. And that does so much damage. So here's where many children begin to realize that they're kind of forced into this position of making a decision. I can conform to what the family wants, accept the role, and I will be seen as the hero. Or I can choose what I want. I can follow the path of following my own talents and heart and passions, and I'll be rejected. I can choose to be authentic and real, but that's going to result in rejection. Those are kind of my two options: conform and be a hero, be real and authentic and be rejected. So sadly, for many people, they conform. They feel it's their responsibility. They're the oldest child. They're the oldest male in the family. So that's just what they have to do. And they do it. And they end up with fairly satisfying lives. They end up with, it's not a bad life at all. And they go, see, it wasn't that bad. But what I want you to think about is, was there some deeper complex trauma stuff happening? Yes, on the outside they were conforming and it seemed to work out fairly good. But what was happening deep inside of them? Well, they couldn't be authentic. Their emotional needs of connection and acceptance were only fulfilled conditionally if they conformed. But if they didn't conform, then they weren't connected with or accepted. So your three foundational emotional needs were not met. That is what is so important to understand. And that does a ton of damage. To realize that your acceptance is all based on conditional love, that you can't be authentic. That produces a deep shame, that produces deep damage that affects you throughout the rest of your life. And so sadly, for so many people that grow up in this kind of culture, they end up with a life that is somewhat satisfying, but deep, deep down, there's some deep wounds and fears that have come out of them just having to conform to be accepted. Now, let me end by just saying this. For some of you hearing me today, you're parents and you're going, oh, am I creating subtle complex trauma in my children? Probably I am. Oh no, and you start to panic and you start to go to fear. The danger for many people when we become parents is to think, I have to be a perfect parent or I'm going to destroy my children. What we're beginning to understand is what we call good enough parenting. So in 1989, Jeffrey Cohn and Edward Tronick discovered that a good enough parent only is fully attuned to their child about 30% of the time. That means 70% of the time they're not fully attuned or present to their child. Now, in that 70%, they can neglect their child's some of their needs, they can cause some wounds in their child, and you go, oh, look at the damage that's happening. But the key is this: that parent is good enough because when they realize they haven't been attuned and they've done damage and needs haven't been met, they repair the damage. They address the damage. They own their part. And they successfully resolve the problem, get attuned to their child again, and repair the damage. So no parent is capable of being 100% present 100% of the time. So what we're looking at is to be as present as much as possible, and then if damage happens when we're not present, to repair that damage. That's good enough parenting. We're always working to improve. We're always realizing that it's not just about the activities that I do as a parent, it's about my attitudes. It's about me working on my own stuff so that I can be more present, so that I'm able to connect better with my children. I got to deal with my shame. I got to deal with my wounds. That's what we're talking about. And so if you are a parent, just continue to work on yourself and continue to work on doing a better job of being present and repairing damage that happens if you're not present.